Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jose Adorno. I am the Digital ATN Coordinator at EdAdvance, and I provide professional development and support for digital literacy and in adult education. And I am today's presenter for the session titled Northstar Reporting using Google Sheets or Excel. We have our digital ATN email here, as well as my email and the digital ATN website, where we have tons of information, access to our tech support, which is free as well, and strategies and articles and everything that you need to learn with digital literacy, implementing strategies in the classroom, supporting your learners, bridging the gap. For today's session, we will review the four main components of Northstar. Want to make sure that we have an understanding of the different pieces and what really is fed into reports and the potential use of Northstar. We are going to identify which components feed into the Northstar reports, like you just mentioned. We're going to outline strategies to organize the data collected in Northstar. We're going to look at the data available across the platform, and we're going to export the results to obtain additional information using spreadsheet software like Excel and Google Sheets. While this last one is not necessary, there are some ways that you can, if you're looking for that additional information, different grouping, different visual representation, and that we will be covering here today. We have a getting started with Northstar training video. This video, it's a lot shorter than the training that we had a few years ago. However, this training offers a very good grasp of what's available in Northstar. This training won't go into the details of how to use each component, just but instead offer you a brief overview. This presentation or this training will actually walk you through all the components. How do you set it up, and how do you get started? The Northstar implementation plan template also outlines the process for implementing Northstar within your agency. This document was created through Digital ATN and really walks you through the different aspects of Northstar. How would you, if you're going to use assessments, it'll ask you what part of the assessment you want like to use, goes over some of the things to consider, and then when you're going through the questioning, then the questions, it will give you that perspective or those points to keep in mind when you're using these, and then more and align it to the different programs. What are your focuses and things like that. This document is free. You have access to the template that you fill out, but you also have an example so you could get an additional context of one way that you can use it. With Northstar, it's digital literacy focus, and you have a list of different modules that are available. Or in this case, we are going to look at these into your different topics. So you have your essential computer skills, which goes for phone, keyboard basics, and logging in. This is new and only available in standards and assessment, which we'll go over a little bit further on of like what's available in what, in what formats. And it goes through the OS, the operating system, which is how you navigate on a computer. Then you have the essential software skills, which is pretty much the what can you create with these things that your word processor, Excel, PowerPoint, and it covers Google Docs. And then you have the applied version, which is your technology in daily life, going online, using social media, information literacy, career search skills, and go on. As you could see here, using email and internet basics are considered essential because it's the computer's your gateway to get to to these aspects in which they all kind of intertwine. So what we've done is that we have a question is to kind of sum up each section. So if you have essential computer skills, how do you interact with the technology? That's your first area that you're working on, that first um, piece of Northstar. In your second one here, which is essential software skills, what can you do with with the technology? As you continue to work with technology and the different applications available, what can you produce? What digital content can you come up with? Here is covering some. We know that there's many applications that you can use both online and application based. But again, this section is focusing on that creation piece. And then the last one, using technology in daily life, how do you apply the technology in day-to-day activities? Here you're going to see here you're going to see what are the type of if you're looking at social media, if you're looking at career search skills, if you're looking at K to 12 um, remote instruction and that kind of thing, it's going to give you that aspect of the technology where you're applying it under different contexts. Like telehealth appointments is another one. So let's go quickly about requirements. So Northstar recommends the program for students that have a 211 CASAS reading score. This applies to the Northstar online system, which is considered the NSOL, and the lessons. There's a pair of headphones or earbuds that for you, so they could listen to, or you can listen also to the content that's being provided. If especially if you're having a computer lab, if you're having your on a computer lab, you're gonna need the headphones, and then access to a PC, a laptop, or a Chromebook. While tablets and smartphones may access Northstar, the modules and assessments may not score properly. What they have been doing is they have been releasing new versions of assessments. They're adding mobile capabilities to that, so they work better on smaller screens. However, you do have to keep in mind if you're using a phone or a student is using a phone, it's very small. So if you're looking at basic computer course, which is going over a desktop, you're going to see the desktop so small that it's going to be difficult to read. And a lot of the North Star modules have these interactive pieces where where it simulates. So you have to click on start and open an application, close an application, or go to file and open or edit and those kind of things. So depends on what it is. Some of the content you can go through it. It's going to vary the experience based on the module that you're working on. Going over briefly, and I like to include this when we're talking about any of the curricular options that we have, is that we have focus three here. You have your dark curriculum, which is uh, very handy for pre-beginner and beginner literacy and digital literacy learners. Looking at easier vocabulary, students that don't have that minimum score could actually work with Dart first and get that detail and get that um, easier introduction to some of the content, the vocabulary, and the skills. It starts to incorporate Northstar beginning on lesson 10, and then is great as a supplemental resource. We've had a pilot this year, last year, where we selected agencies that had Northstar implemented already in the agency, and a lot of the barriers that or students that needed differentiation or additional support, they were using some of the Dart lessons to reinforce and provide that additional practice, which ended up in this great collaboration between the two and based on what you would need. Right now, we're working on Northstar, which again, we're looking again at that score, that around 210, 212 score. We're you can have the option to assess students at entry. You can offer self-paced modules. They can earn certificates and badges. You can track student progress, and and most of them are available in Spanish as well. And again, you'll see here like the quick visual, low digital skill level, low English language level. You have your digital skill level here, and your English language level is higher. And then for Google, you're having this higher English level, higher digital skill level, specifically because you're navigating between more than one screen to complete some of the content. It's not all simulated or integrated like in Northstar. You would have to change between windows and you have to be comfortable with that if you open something going back to that one or reopening a document that you already are working on. So it does require a little bit more digital skill. That's why it's a little higher. But again, this is you start students with Northstar, they need a little bit more rigor and develop or kind of hone on those skills. Then you could move into Google Applied Digital Skills where you would get that additional support or opportunity and context to apply these skills. Their curriculum focuses on language development. With North Star is the creation and application of technology, understanding how the technology works. And then with Google Applied Digital Skills, it's the focus on technology application, not just learning how the software works, but more as to how does this fit across different contexts, work, home, and that kind of thing. Going back into Northstar, there's a total of 312 standards across these three different sections that we see. There's 20 areas, 17 assessments, and 15 modules. As you see, there's a smaller right there, kind of groups as you go. There's a list here to see the Northstar standards by area. When you go here to the standards, and I just clicked on the link so I could open, you have a list here of all the standards. This is a PDF document. You could click on any of these. It'll take you to that particular area. As you see here, there's additional Google topics, and I'll talk about that shortly. You have your smartphone and keyboard, and then you have your list of skills. Zooming in a little bit more so you can see. And again, it's just a list of standards, and it'll walk you through. It goes very specific to like drag and drop, which is a mouse skill, and then it goes into more advanced more advanced applications. The further along you go into like in accessing telehealth appointments, where it says prepare device for a virtual visit. What does that mean? Setting up and signing into a portal and all these pieces. So again, you see that mix of between the two. Um, it's a very wide scope. Going back to the overview here, everything that you see in red does not have modules. So smartphone keyboard basics and logging in. This is the newest module that came out. Well, not module, the newest set of standards that came out. And there's an assessment for I'm sorry. Areas in bold only have standards available. So supporting K to 12, and they have been updating this. So maybe some of these we do have modules now. I haven't done the January check-in, but they have been adding first standards, then they started to add some assessments, some modules. So this always changes based on the list of updates that they have on upcoming changes. So again, right now there's no modules for most of for the ones in red. The standards usually will accompany with an assessment, which is great because then it allows you to see at least test some of the students and get an idea of how much they know in those particular areas. So the four main Northstar features. The Northstar standards go as basic as turning a computer on or off, to using search strategies to find relevant information online. Digital skills represented across the areas show the path on how a learner can increase digital proficiency as they gain autonomy in the computer skills. Just like we were looking at when we were going through the standards, right? How small and how wide the scope is. However, not all learners are able to engage at this level, commonly due to the basic levels of the English language, the lack of digital literacy experience, or a combination of both. So, right now, over the past few years, based on what we've gathered with our insights with how Northstar is being used across the agencies that opted in, um, and across the US with those statewide, we have four main components. So as you see here, we have three listed. We have our assessments, we have curriculum, and we have the online learning. Now, these components shape how Northstar is implemented, and they are influenced by factors like time, resources, agency capacity, digital literacy proficiency, learner language levels, and other contextual needs. These components are all tying into a component that's not listed here, which is the Northstar standards. These four components selected based on or determined based on the implementation piece determined based on the factors that are listed here have taken different have been applied in different ways across agencies. What we're going to talk about now is how agencies have used Northstar is to get an idea of how you would apply it, and then from there we'll look into more of the reporting. So component number one is the Northstar standards. The Northstar standards are the core of the digital literacy program. They are used as a measure to assess mastery across the modules through assessments, the curriculum, mastery across the modules through assessments in the curriculum, right? I again mentioned modules here. What we are going to see is that there's the modules itself. What I was trying to refer to was the lessons, the units available. And then when you're looking at the modules, you have the Northstar Online platform, which then again, they're matching. So you can use the Northstar standards in a variety of ways. Create a list of digital skills that can be covered during onboarding, training, orientation. You can outline a digital learning plan for employment, career, and other goals. And you can identify skills currently covered across the agency and incorporate intentional practice and rigor. Okay. So, in other words, if you have an application at your agency that you use, you could use the NISTR standards to highlight what are the skills, digital skills that are required to proficiently use that application, which will offer you an opportunity to continue to develop and highlight these digital skills across that application, and then using that to apply to other different contexts. Utilizing the Northstar standards allow for additional practice outside of Northstar, which may improve scores when administering assessments. Many agencies indicate that additional learner support is needed to ensure that digital skills are being developed. So, in addition to the modules that they're working independently and all the other components, agencies have found and teachers have reported that students have needed additional practice outside of the module, outside of the unit, I'm going to call them, outside of the units. So for them to develop that. So going over how to use a mouse doesn't translate to now they're proficient using a mouse. They need the practice to know how to navigate the mouse, knowing what right click is versus left click, and chances for them to experiment and experience that, or engage with the device using these. And that's what this is focusing on. The Northstar standards give you that scope to apply it across different applications in different contexts to things that are already available at your agency, and that you as the instructor or as an administrator already go in models to students. It's just more intentionally modeling instead of just assuming that a student already knows how to navigate. It's like that narration, right? You have that narrator in the back. Um, Very good book. If you when you're reading a very good book that's very visual, you could actually, and you're engaged, you could actually see how that character is moving along and doing something. Same thing, but then with the technology. So digital narrating or something like that. Our second component is assessments. Assessments allow for both staff and learners to show what digital skills are demonstrated prior to beginning or at the end of the unit, or even during the unit as well. You see here that we're going to have Northstar in the middle. Everything that we're going to see from the other three components tie very close to Northstar standards. It's aligned to Northstar standards. So we're going to see Northstar standards stay there as we see the different the remaining components. You can use the North Star assessments as a pre-assessment for learners that are entering the program, a pre or post test to verify retention or mastery of content, a post assessment to complete the unit or module, and a way to award certificates and digital badges. These assessments, though, must be proctored in order to be able to award certificates. Northstar does go over that in that video. So if you are interested in looking into awarding certificates or digital badges, that video at the beginning of this presentation is a great way to get you started with that. And once we go into the reports and the data, you're going to start to see how the assessments are key to identify what standards that the students need to develop or they mastered, which is then again kind of key of having Northstar in the middle, the standards in the middle. Northstar component number 3 is the curriculum. The Northstar curriculum provides lessons, scope and sequence, unit projects, and other resources that teachers can use in the classroom. My favorite is the scope and sequence. The scope and sequence gives you a list of, I hope I have another slide before I continue. Okay, the Northstar sequence, the scope and sequence has the lessons. It has your vocabulary. It has the digital skills that are covered. It has the said vocabulary. Something else I'm missing. The lessons. So I'll show you the lessons that are covered, and the lessons are hyperlinked. So if you have that scope and sequence, which gives you that bird's eye view of what's covered in that module or in that unit, you'll have access to all the lessons that are tied to that unit. So you could click on it, you'll open the lesson, you get all the information that way. And again, you are having that opportunity to really expand to different components within that unit, the different lessons, the standards that are being targeted in those lessons, and all of that. So everything that you need, you'll find it there. They also have a CCRS alignment map, which similar but showing what CCRS standards you could use for that, which again comes very handy when you're trying to apply Northstar across different contexts. So when do you use the Northstar curriculum? The Northstar curriculum can be used to introduce and scaffold content, review content covered in the modules, and differentiate instruction while offering additional support for learners. Some agencies even have these as packets. They have in the curricula, there's activities and work that they could also do. And students complete that first. They get that information to introduce, especially very handy for learners that are under that score. You could scaffold some of that content, lower that level of entry, get them familiar with the vocabulary and what's expected from that unit, and then you launch them into the modules. Then that would give them that content to know what to expect, what are they more or less need to learn, and that kind of thing. And our final but not least important Northstar component, the online learning platform. The Northstar online learning platform allows users to access the modules available in Northstar. Each module is aligned to the Northstar standards. Both the assessment results and the progress on modules can be tracked in this platform. This platform is user base. So we will go into the system to see Northstar the Northstar profile on the agency side, but this one in particular is where all the modules are located, and you could also take the assessments through there. It's not as a teacher or as a support, you won't be able to see this platform on the student side. However, you will see what the student sees through the admin page. You also have access to the Northstar online learning platform. I'll show you where you will click in to see that. If it happens that you don't have access to it, it's something that the Northstar admin could add it for you. It's just a button, and it'll turn it on, and you'll be able to see that. So when do you use the Northstar online Northstar online learning? So you can use NSOL to offer asynchronous learning. So if students are going to work independently, it provides a platform that offers scenarios to practice and develop digital skills. This is these interactive scenarios or simulations, so to speak, to see how the concepts work. There's some with mouse when you're practicing with the mouse, what you should do, and it will react if you prompt those correctly. It won't, however, show you um it won't give you like additional unlimited practice. So if you need an additional practice, you'll have to look separate. And facilitate differentiated instruction that allows for users to develop these skills through quick links to sections in a module. So here we're going to look at this a little bit more once we go into the reports. But basically, if you're looking at standard 5 from basic computer skills, they could go into their Northstar Online Learning and look at the standards and look at that standard number 5, and then click, and it'll take them to that specific section of the module where they will get that um, practice on that skill. The components that feed into the reports, the out of all the components available, only the assessments and the online learning feed into the reports. We're going to talk a little bit more about the reports, and then I want to spend some time to show you actually how that works. Um, how it looks like in the system. But again, you'll have it's the assessments and the online learning where you will be able to track your curriculum and your standards. The technically standards is reported, but the way that you use the component on its own would not be reported. So if you're using a computer program, an application, and you're using standards to kind of reinforce some of these digital skills, there's no way for you to track that. However, using you know that that could improve the scores. The assessments is what students take, and then the online learning is what they're learning throughout the module. That's where you're going to be able to track and see how they are in regards to the standards and how you're going to then differentiate in curriculum or external resources. So the Northstar reports, there's three tabs that we're going to look at to target these to see the data. We're going to have the learners tab, the assessments tab, and the reports tab. Before we begin, I do want to point out the data available in the learner tab. And we have next to each name, we're going to see a list of different icons. Some of these icons are just grayed out. Some of the icons have a little outline, and then some of them have color in addition to the outline. And what this means is that when you're looking at the student or at the learner at a glance, if it's grayed out, that means they haven't taken an assessment yet. If they have the outline, that means they taken an assessment, but not a past it's not a past proctored assessment. If they take a if they pass the assessment, then they'll have a colored one. This indicates that this student can, it was proctored. If you wanted to do the certificates, these are the ones that they passed. And you can see these at a glance. These are all clickable and then will show something like this. As we see here on the left, you have this grayed out thumbs up. I think this was information literacy. Don't remember right now. But this icon, when you click on it, you see that it's 95% assessment. In order to pass an assessment, you need at least an 85%. And then you have the 100% practice. This means the student went through the entire module and the completed the module and passed the unproctored assessment. On the right side, then we see the same thing, but here we have an 86% assessment. Even though the assessment on the left is higher, the assessment on the right was proctored. And because they meet that 85, the 85 or above score, then that's what determines the color change. And again, 100% practice. Some learners are going to have proctored assessment with 0% practice. Some of them might have 50% practice. Based on the assessment, we're going to see, and I'll show you what standards that they need to work on. That's what's going to determine what they need to work off of that module. In the learner tab, you can customize by view. So you'll see the status. So you could sort by active, pending, or deactivated. You could see by name, and this is just sorting um, by last name. So it's either A to Z or Z to A. And then last login will show you who's the latest that the first one that logged in, or is no one logged in before. You could do it that way. You could also filter by tags, but tags would only allow you to filter once. So if you have more than one, um, it will not show you. It will just be if you want to filter by multiple. Sorry, if you want to filter by multiple, then you'll have to click or you have to do the actual filter and select all the tags that you would like to filter. So what I'll do now is that now that we went over this piece, I'm going to move over to the presentation, to the live data, and everything is going to be on on this document for you to view after. But my goal is to show you live what it is, and then this presentation outline is more like a kind of, you have everything in one place where you could see this information or refer back to. So right now we're using one of the agencies to use this. I will block this out so you won't see it, the names. I might block out the tabs as well. If I see that that might be thing. So if you're watching the recording and you don't see, just know that these are names for students and these are tags. So you'll set up a tag where you could see this information. As I mentioned already, you have your filters here. Check marks field is indicating that students are active. If you click on it, you'll get to see. Oh, 1 second, it logged me out. I'll be right back. If you click on the status here, it's going to give you the pending and the activated accounts. So pending just means that the student uh, hasn't logged in and activate the account. Again, you're gonna have the actives if you see the check marks here. You can filter by name, which is going to sort by first name, either the first name or by it's going to sort by last name, either A to Z or Z to A. We have your tags here, so I could click on student, and all of a sudden, everyone that has the tag student will then filter. So if I scroll all the way down, I'm only going to see all the tags that have student. If I needed additional filters or I needed an additional tag, you click here on modify filter. Right now, under tags that have student, I could click here on plus or other tags. So again, I could click here with this additional tags. So I could do like family literacy, and I could add as many as I'm looking for, or match the following tags. So it will be either this one or this one. And again, here you could just select these, what type is the status. You'll get additional time here. Okay. And all of this will allow you to just create your filters. In other words, if you haven't done so and you are looking into working with reports, tags are going to come in handy. Think about tags as your class name, as the location, as the type of grant that they are that program is running. If you're having a staff, specific staff, like all the students that are under X or Y staff, um, that kind of thing. Even by city, if your agency is serving more than one city, then you probably could have it that way. This allows when you're working on reporting to really add more depth to the data that you're collecting when you're ready to look at this data. Just I would do mention, if you remove tags for student, which you can at any point, then that just affects that won't show. So adding the year is also a great way to do this. We have here a few that is showing the school year and the tag. So if that student is deactivated or that tag is no longer active because let's say you don't use that tag in your, then at least you could still have that history data available to see that information. So just something to keep in mind. When you click on a student's name, you're going to see all the information available for that student. Under the history, you'll see all the different modules or assessments that they took. It'll show you the assessments here. This is the score. It'll show you what lessons, if they completed the lessons. You'll see if the student completed the lessons but not attempt the assessment. You'll see legacy from time to time. And when you see less legacy, this will be if that student took the old or before it was updated, the module. So they would still have the badge earned, like you see right here. They're not required to do it again, but it will show you whatever the attempt, whatever they worked across. If you're going down and looking at additional attempts, you see this one is Internet Basics. There's 21 attempts. This is going to be key when we're talking about spreadsheets. You have 21 assessments. You are going to start to see that when you're running the reports, you're going to see that amount populate. So the spreadsheet is a great way to clean out what data you want to see, in addition to like the time frames that you want to use as well. And I'll show you how to filter that. But again, that granularity of what assessments were given and that kind of thing, you're going to see that more on the spreadsheet side. You can click on any part of this. You're going to have a breakdown. You're going to have a breakdown on two areas. The status of the assessment. So we're looking at the standards that the student didn't show mastery or proficiency. And then you'll have here the standard number with the standard. And then you're going to have the status on assessment, which again, will be the same thing. But here I'll show you practice status if the student took the practice, which is the module itself. And then the status on assessment will show if that student took the assessment. Now, just so you know, when you're looking into the history, you could click on any of these. But once you click on one of these, it's going to jump into the assessments detail, which is your next tab. And with the assessment tab, you're going to see a lot more information than you did initially. You know already the standards, what the student would need to work on. Looking at that standard, you knew that 3, 5, and 7, I'm gonna say, they needed to work on. So you could tell the student in your Northstar online learning, these are the standards that I would like for you to work on, and then they could access the specific areas of the module that target those 3 standards. You have your tags for the student as well. You have the standards mastered and the standards that need improvement. The great thing about this is that if you go down here under missed question numbers, you could click here and toggle everything. So you'll know how many items that test had, which was 32. But if you click on any of these, you're going to get a little screenshot of what was the test item. It's not going to tell you what the answer is or what the input was. However, you will know what did the student get wrong. So here it'll say define email and identify common email clients. You won't be able to tell here, but because you see the screenshot, then the answer here will be Yahoo Mail, Gmail, Outlook. These are your 3 options. Student probably clicked on Chrome or clicked on Firefox or Audible or any other application. So now it's really looking at this picture. You need to it's really helping identify app icons, right? What is app icon? What is an email? And then identifying, Gmail is an option, Outlook's an option, that kind of thing. We're going to see this a little bit more developed when we go into the reports. But you also get additional information on testing. You also get additional information on testing, like the date, how many numbers were correct, what was the score, time that took, and that kind of thing. So again, this is our assessments tab. I'm going to go quickly to the presentation. And now we're going to look at the last report. We have the data available in the reports tab. And in this case, there's three options as well. You have at a glance, you have the summary report, and the details report. So if we're going, my bad. If we're going to reports, you have your filter results. This, and you will see something very similar to this across all three tabs. You could enter the tags, you could do the date range, but you could also select the date. So if I'm looking at, I want to go back to see, and I won't do it here, so that way I have more volume, like to show you. But if I'm looking at from August to December, then I'll run that filter, and it's only going to give me those assessments between that time. Which again comes in handy when you're looking at some of this data. You don't want to look at, you might want to look at data from last year or 2 years ago. You do want to make sure that you're covering enough. If you're working with current, that you're looking at current, unless you're trying to compare. So again, you could enter the dates here and then do search, and it'll just filter them for you. Up here, it'll give you summary report and detail reports. For whatever reason, as I'm presenting, it won't show you these options here, but it's the same options that you can see down here. In your summary report, this is really your graphics. And there's two graphics that you get. It's the assessments taken and the assessments passed. When you hover, which is one of the skills that you learn in Northstar, is that you'll see that it'll give you the number. So there's 62 internet basics assessments taken. And if I go to internet basics here, we have 33.871% passing. So we're looking at about 20 assessments-ish. Right? So again, this is not giving you super detailed information. It's kind of a scope, a bird's eye view of just assessments. I have a preference in looking at detailed reports, and I'll share why. Before, this was something that you could only get when you had exported to Excel spreadsheets. With the latest updates that Northstar has done, these reports are a lot more granular and show you more information. And my favorite is that if we're looking at, I'm going to do Windows 10, which will have 54 records. Again, you can filter the results here, same way that we did before. You can just filter by passing, failing, and custom score. You have your question performance. In your question performance, you're going to see what was the percent correct, what was the percent incorrect. So now, if we're looking at question 15, there was 20 incorrect, and there's 34 correct. We see 24 is a big one. There's 24 correct and 38 incorrect. That was the single item, the item that's significantly, that most of the students significantly struggled with. So when we go into the questions down here, we can see more information. We see the summary, which when we click on it, we'll get to see that screenshot that we did for the learners, right? But here you get to see the percentage of students that took that question and answered correctly. So as you see here, Program for slideshows, 96% checked off as one of your students' most successful questions. Start and exit programs, 100%. So that means everyone understands how to open and close applications. We see that this is one of the most, just open, close, and switch between windows was a struggle. And then we go to 24, sign out. So shut down, restart, and log off a computer. That was 29. So if I click here, I get to see what was the question, and I'll be able to, knowing what needs to be done, then model students, provide them with some practice, do that digital narration of what we do at the end once when we're closing out and exiting programs and things like that. There's like many ways that you could approach this. Do small centers with different of these different skills that need improvement and kind of create some scenarios of them practicing. So again, different ways that you could approach it. You could ask everyone to go in to the module and do that one. So this one was Windows 10 and this was sign out. So if I'm a student or I tell my student, okay, I would like for you to work on standard 11, shut down, restart, and log off a computer. Not necessarily telling them to sign out. So when you go into the Northstar online learning, which you would access by going to your name here and click on Northstar online learning, hoping it doesn't, it opens a, there you go. Okay, it does. As a student, I'm like, okay, so the teacher told me I'm going to need to work with my Windows 10. So I click here, I go here to lessons, and here you're going to go by standards. When you go by standards, you'll get all the way down to, oh no, it doesn't give me 20. No, it was 11. I'm saying 24. Question number 24, the standard was 11. So shut down, restart, and log off a computer. When I click on practice, it's going to start the module at that standard. So again, it gives you that flexibility as to really go in depth with how you're going to be showing learners how to work. If it's only a handful of students that are having that issue, you can find them individually, share that information with them, and they could work on it. If you're working at a big classroom, then you could have everyone. Most of them need to do it. Could have everyone go in there and refresh. You'll have your this. There's no populated assessment here because I haven't taken that assessment. If I would have taken that assessment, I would either have the check mark or the X. If I was a student already, I'm going to move to a different one just to show you. I'm going to go to email and I go to standards. Here you're going to start to see these are the ones that I didn't pass. So even if your student did pass that assessment, they would see what they didn't pass in that assessment. And if they took that assessment multiple times, you'll see the list of all the assessments. You could say, go to your latest assessment. When they click on it, it'll populate the latest assessment. It'll show what they need to work on. They could also click there. So again, all of this is integrated into the online learning platform. And all of that we just got from going into the reports. We print them out, or we ask them to work individually, or we're differentiating in the classroom. There's like multiple ways for you to really branch out and support your learners through the reporting. Additional reports. Oh, my bad. Additional reports exporting CSV. So the question is, if detailed reports are available directly in Northstar, would there still be a need to export data to spreadsheet software like Google Sheets or Excel? Great question. Before that was the case, before you had options or Northstar, that whole group view was only available if you were to do the export. Northstar included that now, and it's integrated into the reports tab, which is excellent. That was kind of like the main feature. And because that's available now, maybe you don't need to go into a CSV. However, there are a few options that would actually help if you do a CSV. What we're going to do is going to briefly talk about how to export it, but also see what are some potential uses. You can export assessment reports as a CSV file in the assessments tab in Northstar. We recommend exporting the include all question responses option. And when you click on CSV, you'll do include all question responses, and that's the option, right? That's generate a download, and it will allow you to view all the assessments taken. You can filter by learners, modules, proctors, proctored assessments, and more. And you can find all questions submitted with learners' names. That's the main piece. The difference between the Northstar report and the export is that the export, when you have all the responses, you're going to see all the assessments that student took with all the items, and it's all in one spreadsheet. When you're looking at Northstar, all of the individual, you go into the learners tab, and all the group, you get into the assessment tab. But you won't be able to tell the names of learners if you needed to do it that way. We'll go over that a little bit more specific. I would like to answer the question, when should I use Northstar reports and when should I use the export? So to use Northstar reports, you can track each learner's progress on specific standards. And sometimes some learners print out that page, or the teachers print it out for them. And then these are the areas that you have to go in and take a look. As you saw on the Lone Star Online Learning, it clearly shows you what they need to work on. So if they're very comfortable with technology and they already understand the system, that's a great way to send them off, right? And then you could track it with the platform. Use tags to pinpoint areas requiring additional support. This works on both ways. Align teaching strategies to focus on mastery areas of improvement. We went to a few examples earlier on. And then optimize instruction for focused short-term sessions. Again, if you're going to differentiate, you could look at the assessment, then the reports, get the group view, create a few stations. If you see that there's anything that's under 50%, could be a station, and you have different activities involved or different practice with other applications, or you're integrating those digital skills across applications that you're already using, and just doing that online narration with your learners, or having them just tell you what's the next step and that kind of thing. All of that could be included organically in the classroom and provide that those opportunities for them to grow and understand what's supposed to happen with technology in general. If you're to use spreadsheets, I mean, you could use spreadsheets to use spreadsheet reports to efficiently organize and manage data for broader audiences. If you're having 200 students that you're trying to look at, if you have 5, 10, maybe 15, you could do that through your reports. You just filter by tags and you go through the learner and do that way. But if you have 20, 30 students, or you're looking for all your ESL students or your ABE students, then you might want to do the export, because then that way it's going to give you more, it'll show you more what needs to work, or what you're going to need to work on. You can create additional visual representations not available in Northstar. Perfect example when we're looking at the summary, you only had graphs for um, had a pie chart for assessments offered, and then you had a bar chart for assessments passed. If you wanted to do different or additional ones, then you could do pivot tables, or you could, you have different ways to create different visual information or data that you want to report with Northstar. Could also use reports to tailor instruction based on learner needs. So if you're looking at um, because you have names for, and I don't think I mentioned it at all here. You have a list of names for the previous slide. You have the names of the learners. So if you're looking at students that are struggling, let's say um, you're looking at population, you're looking at different programs. Um, there's services available as well for specific populations, or let's say students that have some sort of benefits they qualify, or that kind of thing. Doing Using these reports will allow to know who are the students, and then if you're using laces or other information, then you can make those connections. Oh, these are the students that are struggling. There are these services. Do they qualify? Kind of do a pre-screen. All these students qualify. Reach out to them. That kind of thing. You have a group of 10 students, 15 students that are struggling with um, a specific skill or a specific set of skills. The library has a program. Sometimes you're trying to write something, put something together for support learners. They need these skills for employment, and now you're starting these conversations with data that you're using from Northstar. Spreadsheets are great for that. It gets very you get very granular with it. You have all these options where you can filter and offer opportunities. That's why spreadsheets are not for everyone. If you're just doing instruction and you're trying to differentiate and target things at the moment, the North Star reports do a great job for that. Um, but if you're looking something more specific, you're trying to expand on the program or create opportunities or initiatives, your spreadsheets come very handy. Last but not least, you have access all assessments taken to facilitate data cleanup. Something that we're going to see. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the spreadsheet. Oh, I'm going to show you how to do it, but I'm going to go to the spreadsheet and show you the spreadsheet because that's the one that I cleaned. It doesn't have any names on it. So if you go to assessments and you go to your all results, you could do all your filtering. Oh, names still show up here, but let's say you do all your filtering. You put in the date, you select what modules you want to see, um, what tags you want to see, and all that. If it's all scores, if it's passing, failing, and all that kind of thing. So you could download a few versions of it. But for demonstration purposes, I wouldn't select anything specific. But when you go here to download CSV, you're going to click on this drop down. It's going to give you the two options. I recommend include all question responses. This is the one that will give you the all the answers. And when you click on it, it's going to initiate a download, and you're going to get something similar to this. A lot of information. You're going to zoom in. You're going to have, hopefully this is quite enough. You're going to have assessment ID, username. So this is filtered by assessment ID, which means that each assessment has its own number. A student will show, if a student took the same assessment 10 times, there's 10 rows of that student with the same assessment. This is where the data cleanup comes into play. Or if you want to export specific number, let's say you just want to know passing, or you just want to know those students that didn't pass, then you could do it that way as well. It might require some cleaning, depends on the agencies what you would do. Just for demonstration purposes, I didn't make any specific changes for it. But you have your assessment ID, username, you have some information, the topic, um, software version is if it was like Windows 10 or 11, legacy versus new. Legacy is the old module, and then the new module was the updated. You have start and end times. You have duration, how long did they took on the test. Um, and then you have minutes and second breakdown. What is the number correct? What is the number possible? Score percentage. If it's passed, if it's if it was proctored. If there was a proctor, what's the name of the proctor? What's the location of the agency? So if there's more than one location, then you'll see more locations there. It it's just one location for the most part for the agencies. So usually if you're looking for more than one location, you're looking at your tags. And then you have your questions. They'll go from question one all the way down to the last question. Now, what did I do different to this spreadsheet? I did conditional formatting, which is an option that you do to highlight some information. So I did, if I do right click here, I go down to view more cell actions in conditional formatting. And here I have value is greater than or equal to 85. This column indicates that anything that has an 85 or higher number would highlight green. So at my visual cue is that I see everything that's 85 or over. If I go to the questions, same thing. So I'll click on it, it will give me the options. Value is equal to 1, which means that is correct. I have it as green. Value is equal to 0. I have it as red, and then a cell is empty, which means if there was no question, if it's assessment, let's say if it's basic computer skills, and the question stops at 18, then everything shows black. So that way I could just know that there's nothing after. That's when I know when it stops. And basically, the other thing that I did was I freezed the columns, I freeze the row, the first row. So I select the row, I go to view, go to freeze. I'll say no rows, 1, 2. So I just do one row and then it frees the row. So if I scroll, no matter how much I scroll or not scroll, I'll see it. I always know where I'm at in the columns. And then I did the same for the columns. So I did 2 columns. So there's the assessment ID and then there's the student name. And when you look at the student name, no matter how far right I go, that stays. No matter how far down I go, the row stays. Show the headers. This template that I put together is very basic. Um, when you do the export, you could copy all the data that you exported. You go here to your assessment ID, which is that A1. It's your A1. Ah, that's my train of thought. The A1 cell, you right click, you do paste special, and you do values only. And what this does is that it'll paste all the information, but it will not alter anything that is already created here, which means that the color coding will stay for 85%, that the question numbers here would stay if it's 1 and 0, and that this will stay as well. Also, that means that we have an option that's called filter views. I'm sorry that it's too small. I can't zoom in to show you, but when you are in the top I'm going to see filter view, which is next to the filter. And here you have a list of pre-filters that I created so that you could access these by standard. So if I'm looking at basic computer skills, I click on it, and now I'm only seeing basic computer skill topics or assessments. So I have a list. There's 65 assessments. I can see it down here on the bottom right of the screen. And then I have all of these numbers. So if I wanted to filter by zeros, I could do filters by zeros. Or only do by row, by columns. If I wanted to filter by score percentage, I could click here on the filter. I could do filter by color. I could go to fill color, and I'll just do green, and it'll give me all the greens, or I'll do white, and it'll give me all the assessments that were not passed. And then I could go here under the questions and see what are the items, what are the common ones. Again, what I was mentioning before, in both Northstar reports and in the export, if that student took multiple assessments, it's going to show multiple times that that student took the assessment, either if it was passed, if it was not passed, if it was proctored, not proctored, that kind of thing. So you'll see that information here. This is where you will determine, do I clean it up? Do I just, you do the pre-filter with the reports, and then when you export, and again, this is everything. So if you're just filtering in for the last month or for the term, and by tags, then it's going to minimize that duplicate view of the different reports and numbers that you see. You can access this for free down here. That will be a copy that's available for you on the presentation. And with that, we are done with the presentation. If you need help to further support digital equity literacy or using reports in Northstar, you can schedule a tech implementation and support session here for free. And you could also go onto our website to find not only this video that you're watching right now, but also other presentations, other resources, and other strategies that you could use. Thank you very much for everyone for attending and watching today, and have a great day.